Has this turned into Duel Links? Konami has blessed us with a new selection pack, and this time I have to say there's lots of interesting stuff in here, not really meta defining or anything, but there are very playable decks in this pack. But the rarity wise, we might have to look into this. If I'm happy about this or not, I cannot tell so far, but I will dive right into it. And I have found out that I can do this view where you can only see the newly added cards, but not only, but they are now lighted up. They are the ones that you can see that aren't faded in the background. So we can talk about what's new, what's old, compare, is there enough good new stuff in here, is there too much old stuff in here, and should these cards really all have been ultra rares, or could they have been a bit different? Let's start out with Donner, Dagger for Hire, and yes, you cannot say this card's name in the UK without someone mentioning kebabs right after. It is what it is. This card, very good for hire. An interesting card for sure. Not sure if it needed to be an ultra rare. I feel like a super rare would have done as well, since they have a Link 3, so they already have that kind of boss monster vibe with it. So I feel like a super rare, this card would have been absolutely fine. It would fit more to the consistency of the grading system that Konami has implemented from the start, but it is what it is. I guess they need to have a certain amount of ultra rares, a certain amount of super rares in each pack anyway. So some cards will be here that have no business of being that high rated, but they still had to be included somehow. They probably could have done this a little bit different, but it is what it is. I'm not too annoyed about this, because I think you get away with playing like 1 or 2 in the deck, and then it's not too bad for the purpose of playing for hires. It is what it is. The card does so much for it. It does stuff for going first, it does stuff for going second. Only slight issue with it is that it is once per turn, and only one of the 2 effects once per turn, so you can't use both of them in the same turn. A bit annoying. And keep in mind, you can tribute 1 monster, which can be, if you have tribute a Link monster, then it gets an extra effect which says 1 more such monster. Not sure this has ever been printed on a card before. Found that a bit hilarious. It can tribute itself, if I'm not mistaken, and that is a Link monster then, so you can get the 2 special summons out. So this card boosts for hires quite a bit. And there's another card in the set that also does, which funny enough comes at a rare slot. So there's that. Very happy for this one. So I will have to take this into the whole situation of rating it, because a lot of the good cards are also rare cards, but a lot of the good cards are rarity wise a tiny bit too high. Another very good card in the set that rarity wise is absolutely fine. This card would be an ultra rare in any kind of scenario because it's a massive boss monster, so that makes sense. And note 1+ effect monsters. You heard right. This card can be made with 1 monster, so you can just turn 1 Link monster into this card. Basically, well, 1 Link 4 monster, so you can be doing all of that shenanigans. Very crazy. You can only control 1 of it. It doesn't really matter. It's a massive boss monster. It works very well in Marincess, a deck that I've recently done on this channel, so if you want to check that out, this would be a very neat addition to it. But it isn't locked into waters whatsoever, so this just works in decks that water lock you, but it also works in every other kind of deck. And it is somewhat of a board vibe. It does stuff, and it also has a second effect during the battle phase. You can destroy cards on the field up to a number of calling to monsters on the field. Will come up sometimes, but yeah, the first effect is the bread and butter of this card, but the second effect is also not bad. We have Naturia Beast, one of the cards that isn't new in the set. That card existed for a long time already, but it is still a very big powerhouse. No issues with it being ultra rare in the first place. And a very good card to snatch up in this pack, especially considering Naturias come out in this set. We have Axel Synchro Stardust Dragon, a card that annoyingly is ultra. I think it would have been fine as a super rare because it's more like a combo piece than a boss monster. You can use it to finally go into lots of helpful things. You can use it to go into level 9 Synchros. You can use it to go into level 10 Synchros, depending on the setup that you have. Technically, you can play this in the new Goatee deck as well if you want to, but the cards usually won't be in the graveyard, the tuner, so it's not that easy to get them back. But there's ways how you technically could, but you'd have to run Stardust Dragon. And the fact why I don't like this being ultra rare is because you need ultra rare Stardust Dragon already. You then will need an ultra rare level 9 or level 10 Synchro, because that's basically the only ones that are actually good. And this card is also an ultra rare, so you already have 3 ultra rares just to do 1 combo to get a monster out that is somewhat of a boss monster and then will be unaffected by your opponent's activated effects. You can do some synchro stuff during your opponent's turn, so stuff like Satellite Warrior should be working if I'm not mistaken. There's a lot of applications where this card really works, but sadly I will not be playing this in any of my decks because The whole Synchron kind of thing is a bit too expensive because all good Synchros these days literally are ultra rares, not even super rares, they're mainly ultra rares, so I will not be touching this card whatsoever. We have the new archetype, Goatee of the Deep. Beyond is their boss monster, the whole Goatee archetype, which I have to say, art style wise, very, very impressive. I love how this deck looks. I really like the mechanics as well, although they do get a bit boring because it's not that crazy, but you can use it as an engine in certain other decks. It does stuff for some other decks, so it's not just limited to itself, and this card being ultra rare as their massive boss monster isn't too bad either. You'll be fine with just running one of them anyway. So that one is not where it matters. There will be one where I will have to say a bit more about that one. We have Ice Jade, whatever its name is, the level 10 Synchro. Very, very good card. Also works on Goatee pretty well if I'm not mistaken. You do need a water tuner for this one, so this is not as generic as some of the other cards. Very annoying though. I don't know if Ice Jade as the deck really needed another ultra rare and another boss monster. It is what it is. I will probably be ditching this card as well on this channel because for budget purposes, not very helpful, but it's a good card. If you draw one of it, then there will be applications in water decks where you can play it, although the level 10 is kind of steep for a lot of decks to reach, so you'll have to see how you actually can utilize this or if you do need it in the end or not. Art style wise, very, very nice card as well. Ice Jades I feel like have become a waifu deck in general. Lots of people are picking them up now because the deck isn't too bad. It's just incredibly expensive. This is why you will never see this on my channel. And there will be new additions in this pack as well that further make the situation worse for myself. We have Plunder Control Ship Yord. Very, very good card. You will get away with running just one of this. I think usually you would maybe want to run two, but if you try to aim for like a more budget build, which people have asked me to do this, and I've tried so hard, but I haven't come up with like a way to play this deck that is very budget friendly, because the field spell and everything make it very hard because you have lots of extra deck monsters, lots of cards that need higher rarity, so it's not as easy, but there is something in there. I will be coming up with it now that I know this card is finally out, and I possibly pick up some by opening this pack. Then I might be doing that somewhat soon, so stay tuned for this one. Very, very great card. Yes, ultra rare slot was kind of foreseeable, not too bad as well. I can deal with that being an ultra rare. Another card I can technically deal with being an ultra rare, would have wished for it to be a super rare though, because this card can start combos in some way. It can send to the graveyard some really, really, really disgusting stuff with the effect, and it technically can be played in Naturia. I don't know if the whole it being a dark monster matters, because I don't know if Naturia is actually at one point lock you into Earth. I don't think so, but if they do, it would be a bit problematic. But you can run this in insect decks and some beast decks as well, plant decks as well. So it's not too bad. There are lots of plant monsters and insect monsters that want to be sent to the graveyard, so this card does it all. And then technically you can further extend the combos. Not sure if this even does stuff in some Battle Wasp variants, because that is technically a Synchro insect deck, so we have that there as well. We have Naturia Mo Cricken. This is where I'm going to lose it, because this card has no business being ultra rare. I'm not saying it's bad, it's a very, 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 very strong card, but we don't really like the fact here that some of the searches, the consistency cards are ultra rares rather than super rares. It's the same Amazoness princess cards thing again, and it's very annoying because this card could have been such a nice super rare. And yes, they didn't have another Naturia card that they could include in this pack that they could have made an ultra rare, because I don't think there was any new extra deck monster. So it's a bit annoying. I guess this was foreseeable as well, that one of the two good ones that are in this pack will be an ultra rare. Very annoying, should have been a super rare in general, and it's going to make it a lot harder for me to make a playable Naturia deck, because this card is so good, and I wish it wasn't an ultra rare, and it has no business being one, beside the fact that this is how the packs are structured. So I can't be like super raging at Konami, but I still am a little bit raging at them. Is what it is. They could have added the new Naturia cards in a solo mission thing as well if they wanted to, but obviously you can't always have that. They've already done a good enough job to keep this game a lot more free-to-play friendly than, for example, some of the other games like Duel Links. Let's not mention that any further, though. This card, very, very good. You technically, I think, want to have 2 or 3 at least, but there are other ways of getting this card into rotation at least, so I'll have to look into that. Maybe I will be doing a Naturia deck profile soon. Assault Sunken, another card that, in my opinion, has no business being ultra rare. This might as well have been a rare card. It's not bad, don't get me wrong, it's very good. You can easily play this in the junk speeder decks and all of the other synchron decks. It does a lot for the deck, but it makes it a lot more expensive than it needs to be. This card can't even be used as a sprite extender because it locks you into synchro monsters, so that's a bit annoying as well. And yeah, it's a neat card, but I don't really like that it's an ultra rare. Even a super rare I wouldn't really agree with, but it is what it is. If you pick the card up for a synchron deck, it's kind of nice. If not, then who cares? We have another card that I'm raging about, Moray of Avarice. Every single draw card, basically, every pot card is a super rare. And also, Moray of Greed is a rare card. Pot of Avarice is a super rare card. Why would this card be an ultra rare? It makes no sense. All of the draw cards, in my opinion, should be super rares just for consistency's sake already. Not even for a gameplay or power level wise, but just for consistency. For God's sake, consistency is so important with these kind of things, I feel. Because otherwise, you constantly get the vibe of like, oh yeah, I've got these cards that are absolutely terrible, but I have to spend crafting points on. Then I have these cards that are actually very good, but you don't, and so on and so on and so on. And I don't really like that point, so I will not be using this card obviously in any of my decks because I can't. I just cannot do that, justify this whatsoever. We have another one where I'm disappointed that's an ultra rare, but I understand, I guess. They had to make another ultra rare for Goatee, and I guess it had to be the field spell other than any other card. Technically, they could have made all of the synchro monsters ultra rares and then made this one a super rare as well. It is what it is, it's an ultra rare now. But technically, 4 ultra rares in the deck are fine to have a somewhat playable deck. So I guess if you run 3 of this and 1 of the massive boss monster, that's all the ultra rares you need. You could run stuff like terraforming as well, but it is what it is in the end. Yeah, does lots of stuff for the Goatee deck. Very good engine. Yeah, sadly it's an ultra rare, so if you want to be playing this deck even remotely competitive, I think you have to go into 3 of this. I might be wrong, prove me wrong, but I don't think you can make a very good deck without running 3 of that one. We have Spellbound, a card that will be an ultra rare because all of these generic cards are ultra rares for some reason. I guess that's how they make money with like making generic cards this. It sounds, on the first read, it sounds really good, but then you realize it's kind of okay-ish, because all face-up monsters your opponent currently controls cannot be tributed or used as material for fusion, synchro, exist, or link summon. Thing is, this might as well have been a trap card. Yes, against some decks this can be helpful if you go second and use it during your turn then, so your opponent can't go into other kind of stuff with their materials on board. Can be very helpful, even against Monarchs technically it works, because that stops Ether in theory. Thing is, I don't know, I don't love it, and for the fact it's an ultra rare, I don't really have to love it either. It's playable-ish. Yeah, it is what it is. We have Stardust Warrior, now we're getting to the old cards again. This card has been around for a very long time. I think a TCG that came out and in a structure deck, if I'm not mistaken. I don't really love the card, but it's a bit easier to go into it now, and it's only a super rare, so technically if you're into that whole Stardust thing, then this card can be played. There's better cards that do something like it, because for this one you need 1 tuner or synchro monster as well, and yeah, I think you can go into better cards than this specific one. We have the other Goatee synchro monsters now. This one is a super rare, it's fine. You don't need to run too many of those in the first place. It does stuff, it's okay. Let's not talk about this more. Let's talk about Tilting Entertainment. A card that I find very interesting, but it shouldn't have been a super rare. This would have been a perfect slot for another somewhat playable level 8 synchro in rare or normal, because we don't have that many of them anyway, and it's already quite specific for pendulum decks in the first place, or technically as some sort of removal. So this card would have possibly even seen play if you made it a rare, because people would just splash this into decks, but it's like, I have access to level 8 synchros, but I don't want to invest anything in it. I don't have, at the start, even if you just started the game basically, then you might want to be running these kind of cards. But now that it's a super rare, who is going to craft this? And who is going to choose this card over any other card? I'm not even sure if in pendulum decks this card is better than any of the good generic level 8 synchros. So I don't really think this card does anything at this rarity. And that's sad, because I would have seen some play, not competitive play, but I would have seen some more play if it was a rare card like this. It is not. It can be okay with the pendulum thing, but would you really want to be going into a level 8 synchro that does nothing but removal by battle-ish, and it's even destroying. It's not even sent to the graveyard or anything. It's, yeah. I don't think, maybe I'm underestimating this card, but I heavily doubt that that is the case. We have the other Goatee. Don't really have to say much about that one. It's the same as the other one when it comes to, yeah, super rare, fine at 1. I think same with this one. They're all fine at 1, if I'm not mistaken. You might be wanting to use some of them at 2, but in the end, you will be fine with the ratios of this. The super rares won't harm you too much in this deck. Talking about harming you, this card, very, very old, is in this pack, should never have been a super rare to begin with. It's also a perfect card for like a rare or something, because you need 2 Earth Synchro monsters, and the effect of this card during either player's turn when a card or effect is activated that targets exactly one card on the field and no other cards. So it is targeting protection, but here comes the next one. You can send one card from your hand to the graveyard and negate the activation. So you even lose out on it depending on what deck you play. In comparison to some of the other Naturia stuff, yeah, absolutely terrible. We have some old plunder control stuff in here. See, this is a super rare. You can do it. If you want to, you can do it. Doesn't have to be an ultra rare. There we go. More of the for hire stuff. So you get your money's worth if you want to be going into any of those decks. You will already end up with some of the things that you need for the deck, and only have to open the other packs a tiny bit more, hopefully. We won't know. Satellite Synchron, also a very old card. When it comes to value of this pack, this drops it a lot because this card should never have been a super rare in the first place. Stardust Worm, if you want it to be like that. Then this card also shouldn't be a super rare. It has some application somewhere. I might miss something, but I don't think this card is amazing in any capacity. There might be some place that you can do with it, but I heavily doubt this is going to see all that much play, and I don't like the fact it's a super rare. I somewhat get it, but actually no. Yeah, this makes sense, super rare for this one, because this is one of the better ones. This is one of the tuners that you need to go into the board wipe during your opponent's turn, and all other kinds of shenanigans that you can do with some of the other fish synchros that are out there. So yeah, I understand this. One of them had to be a super rare, but I think that's it. If I'm not mistaken, this is the only super rare of the Goatee main deck monsters, so I'm quite happy, but the trap card is also one. We have additions to Sword Soul. Obviously, I don't have to mention that if you're just looking for the Sword Soul card, do not open this pack, just craft it, lol. It's not too hard, you even get away with just running one of them. The thing is, I kind of question the effect of this card a little bit, because you can target one card in the field zone and one monster on your opponent's opponent controls or in the graveyard and banish them. It's a bit situational from time to time, so I'm not even sure. Do Sword Soul decks play this or don't they? Maybe at 1. You can send it to the graveyard in the budget version if you use the level 4 monster that sends stuff to the graveyard, because you can special summon this from the graveyard, and then it's not like too bad to have, because if a monster is banished by card effect, which will happen quite a lot, then you can't summon this, and this can be helpful as a nice to have card. I don't know. You let me know, you Sword Soul main players, if this card is really, really strong, or if this card is just like it's okay, it's decent, it's fine. Another card shouldn't be a super rare is this one. Very, very, very important. This card should not have been a super rare, because it's a neat card that I assumed would see some play somewhere if it wasn't so high rarity in some jankier decks. But would you really craft this card? Like, be honest, would you? I don't know. I personally wouldn't, but if you do, then good on you. We have On Your Mark, Get Set, Duel. I understand this card is a super rare. It draws you stuff. It can make Signal Warrior live now, the card that you keep getting for free in these ticket packs as well. I've got plenty of them and you can't uncraft them. So annoying. Technically, I can use it now. And this card searches your Synchron monster. Very, very, very strong in my opinion. Not sure if it will see play in the Synchron deck. I think you already have quite a lot of options to search stuff. And the whole fact that if you control no other cards makes it less good if you draw into it at a later stage of the game, but usually the Synchron decks win the game or lose the game in their first turn anyway. We have the card that I was a bit upset about. I understand this card is a super rare, like I get it from the effect, but I wish they had made some of the other Ice Jade cards a bit cheaper, because now I just cannot play this card. But the artwork looks amazing. I really love the artwork of these cards, very, very nice. Makes me even more mad that I cannot be showcasing this deck whatsoever on this channel, because there's no way of making it any way cheap, but the effect of this card isn't too bad. We have Final Cross. Another card shouldn't be super in my opinion. It facilitates some form of OTKs, but I doubt this card is searchable. I'm not sure if there's some card that for some reason searches this. I don't think it is, so I don't think this is even playable in the slightest in most decks. You can make some kind of cheesy deck where this can come up, but since you can't really rely on it consistently, I wouldn't say it's a good card at all. We have Goatee Chain, another card that didn't have to be a super rare, because now you kind of have to be running 3 of this. So you will end up, if you play all the Goatee cards, you will already end up at like 9 or 10 super rares if you play them at max. So a bit annoying, so I'll have to find a way around this if I want to be showcasing the deck on this channel. But yeah, I get why it's a super rare, but I feel like it didn't need to be one. It can kickstart your combos, but I think you can get around it somehow. And now we are back to the rares. I'm not going to go through them one by one. I'll just talk about some of the new cards. The Synchro Monster, very, very interesting card in here. There's probably some weird ways of utilizing this card's effect. You have so many cards now that Synchro summon during your opponent's turn, and you can get this card back. Surprise, surprise. Very, very neat. We have Circle of the Fairies. Interesting card for sure. Not sure we'll see much play, but the extra normal summon for insect or plant monsters might be helpful for some decks. So level 7 Synchro Monster, that is a rare. Could be splashed into some other kind of decks. We have more of the Goatee stuff, obviously a low rarity. Worthy mentions in here, Naturia Camellia could have been a super rare, isn't. Very interesting, it's a rare. I'm very, very happy with that. Thanks Konami, this helps out a lot. And then we have Rex, Fright for Hire. Oof, wow, classic. This card, very interesting. Love it. It's so strong. It's meant to be a dinosaur, isn't it? It's like a little mini dinosaur baby. Quite nice. It does very much for the deck, and you can use both effects during the same turn. Crazy. And technically it's level 2, so there might be some sprite variants now. It is what it is. Level 2 monsters are still very, very, very good. Other stuff, obviously the Goatees are in here. I think level 6 is quite interesting. Another card that's very good in the Goatee deck, or that you at least can play, is this one. Also a rare card. Very surprised, very happy about this. Does some stuff for it. We are lacking good fish cards from time to time, so this one is one of those. We have some trap cards that I want to talk about. If you are into trap monster decks, this card and some other cards can possibly lead you there. There are variants of that you can be playing, and this card somewhat helps with it. I don't know, I always find it interesting that they still make these, and there's probably some people that play like the trap monster deck. Find it interesting. There's enough ways to be playing it if you really wanted to. And we have some more cards down here. Some more of the Goatees, like I said, they are not that expensive, the main deck monsters, so we have this. One very important one, Infernal Queen Salmon though. You can play this card in lots of different water decks. I will make some decks with this because I find it insane. This is a normal rare card, and you can use it for a lot. If this card normal or special summon, if I'm not mistaken, there's a way to special summon this in Goatees a little bit, and then you can special summon one fish normal monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard. So technically, you just have to run one of, well, one card that's basically Garnet. It's even a normal monster, so it's a real Garnet, and then you can keep doing some crazy stuff. And if this card is destroyed by battle, or if this card in its owner's possession is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you can special summon any number of tokens. It's also interesting, so you can block off, you can link some of the next turn, you can use it for synchro stuff. It's interesting, it's definitely interesting, and I might incorporate this in some nonsense shenanigans at one point. And obviously another card that we need to mention is Naturia Blessing. You can special summon one Naturia monster from your hand. Graveyard can be nice, not terrible. You can synchro summon one synchro monster during your opponent's turn. There seems to be a bit of a theme in this pack. You can you obviously have to use a Naturia monster. Can be nice. It's not crazy for this effect, but can be nice. And you can fusion summon one fusion monster from extra deck. And obviously, since it's a Naturia card, it is searchable. And this card can help you getting into the more expensive Naturia cards that you've sent to the graveyard beforehand by some other kind of combo. So technically, this can help you getting into the ultra rares as well, and so on and so on and so on. So I really like that this card is a normal rare card that we can use. And we have Goatee Fury as the last card also. Gladly, this card is, I think, the disruption that they have in Tramp form. Also not a super rare, so we are very happy with that. Let's scroll back up and talk about the pack at the end. Is this pack worth it? If you like Goatee or Naturia, this pack is definitely worth it. You will pick up some crazy cards in the meantime that help you. If you, for example, have never played for hire and you might want to look past the whole furry thing with them, then this pack might be getting you enough cards to consider playing the pack, consider playing the deck, and getting into the secret pack that then you can open to go on further. Same for Plunder Patrol, although there's not that much plunder stuff in here, sadly. There could be a lot more in here if they wanted it to be. This deck is mainly for the Synchron stuff, which I will be passing on, the Naturia stuff and the Goatee stuff, and these are all decks that they do stuff. Sadly, there's not enough in here for a Synchron variant to exist by itself. It's more addition to it. So if you already have it, you want to be investing into this. If you haven't played the Synchron deck, then it probably will still be very, very expensive for you to do so, because you get like, what, 5% of the cards you need in this specific pack, so you need a lot more for it. I would say it's a decent pack. It's not awful, but it could be a bit better. Naturias will show up here and there, also depending on how long the Ishizu cards will still be around. I think for hires might be showing up here and there from time to time, and Goatees can be combined and can be played at like a decent level. It's not going to be any meta contender in here, besides maybe some crazy Naturia lockdown variant. Other than that, the pack is decent. I wouldn't say buy it 100%. You will need all of these cards in the future, because you don't, but it's not completely wasted money, and lots of the cards that are in here, lots of the ultra rares are at least good one-offs, especially for the boss monsters, because there's lots of extra deck monsters in here, and you won't be wasting your money on it. You might also not get what you want though, so keep this in mind. For a budget pack, I would say like a 6 out of 10. Not terrible, but also not very great. Hope you enjoyed the, well, I don't want to say deck profile. Hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. But most importantly, I hope you have a nice day.